Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. As you can tell by the title and the thumbnail, this is going to be my February TBR. So, February is a short month, first of all, only 28 days. It also is my birth month. I was born on February 13th, so like T-minus like less than 3 weeks to my birthday from the point that I'm filming this. So February is a little bit jam-packed with being short and my birthday, but also one thing about February that is different is starting in February I don't have a job. My last day of work is on the 29th. The day that I'm uploading this is actually my last day of work. I just realized that. Wow. So things are going to be a little different in February. I'll have a little bit more time to read, but then simultaneously I'll be also looking for a different job, but like let's not focus on that. Let's focus on the books that I'm reading. So how I normally do my TBR is my Bookopoly board where I roll, typically what I do is, I'm just going to put this down. Typically I roll a 6-sided dice and I add that to 6 to find my baseline of how many rolls. So like in January it was, I rolled a 1, so I did 7 rolls. For February, we're not doing that, we're just doing the 6 rolls solely because I want to be able to have the space to mood read, although you'll see as that goes that just slowly goes downhill. But I just kind of didn't want to have the pressure of possibly rolling 12 and then like rolling 6, having 12, and then possibly having like 6 doubles and end up with like 18 books, plus various other reading things I'm taking a part of. So I just was like, you know what, 6, if anybody doesn't like it, it's my TBR game, I can do what I want. So first I will go through my TBR, then I will also talk about Fabelin, which is a kind of almost like a, it's not quite like a role-playing thing, but it kind of is. And then I'm also taking a part in the Romance Readathon hosted by Books and Bops, well more specifically Zach from Books and Bops. And then I'm also taking a part in Flashback Rereads hosted by Casey from Books and Bops, and that is just like a reread. So you'll see a few rereads on here. That's kind of how I'm participating in that. But I will go into the Romance Readathon TBR after, as well as sometime later in this video I will also be talking about TBR Knockout by Mel from Completely Melanie. And so yeah, this is just going to be a little bit chaotic. I'm also not going to talk about these books that much because, well, there's a lot to talk about. First we'll go with my Bookopoly board picks, where I'll insert the clip and then we'll go from there. So here's the first clip. Okay, so here's the board. As you can see, we left off on Gods, which is the last prompt that I got for January, so we're just going to continue around the board. As I've already mentioned, I'm only doing 6 throws as I'm letting myself mood read a little bit more, slash I already have a bunch of books that I need to get in, and I'm worried that I won't be able to get them in if I have more prompts. So as a birthday present to myself, I'm only doing 6 instead of the usual throw the 2 dice, instead of the usual like roll 1 dice, add to 6, but in March we'll be going back to that. So let's just start off with roll number 1, which will be 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A big book over 500 pages. That's perfect. So for big book, I got the biggest book that was on my TBR, like that I needed to read in February, right off the bat, which is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, and this is the first book in the Crescent City series, where essentially we have half-fae Bryce Quinlan who ends up needing to like look into these murders because they link back into her past, and in doing so it's a little bit dangerous, so she ends up getting a bodyguard named Hunt Athalar, who is a like fallen angel. And that's pretty much all I'm going to describe. This is a reread for me. I read this back in May of 2020, and I'm rereading it for House of Sky and Breath's release, which comes out in February, and you will see later on in this TBR. Roll number 2 is 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I will turn the board. We landed on lowest rated, so that kind of just takes everything out of my control. But we're fine. Okay, so for the lowest rated, I'm going to go on my Goodreads here. This is my like want to read page, like as you can see there, and I'm just going to click it by average rating, and whatever the lowest one is what I will read. Okay, and that's 5 stars, so we're gonna flip it. And there we go. So technically the lowest rated is Tethered by Angelina J. Steffort, but I don't count anything that doesn't have any ratings because, well, who's to say that one, because also this book doesn't, also like this book here isn't published. It doesn't come out until February 28th. I know this because, well, I've had the author on social media and know the release date. So the next book on the list that is actually published is Both of Me by Jonathan Friesen. So that's what I will be reading. For lowest rated was Both of Me by Jonathan Friesen. I think that's how it's pronounced, Friesen. And this I know like nothing about, except it's like a girl meets a guy on a plane, they end up chatting, and then somehow she ends up, like they end up switching carry-ons or something, and then she ends up having to track him down, but then he doesn't remember her, and it's revealed that he has like multiple personalities, and that's literally all I know. This is one that I'm like not excited to read, but I was interested in it when I added it to my TBR, like to my like Goodreads shelf that I showed in the previous clip. So yeah. Roll number 3 is 10 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. An audiobook. So I just have to find an audiobook and put that on my TBR. For audiobook, I will be reading The Ghost We Keep by Mason Deaver. I've been meaning to read this book since it came out, and my library has the audiobook, so I figured perfect timing. This, all I know is we follow Liam, whose older brother passed away like 6 months prior. I'm gonna say 6, like something like that, months prior. And that has kind of just shifted the family dynamic, and then Liam ends up getting close to his brother's like best friend, and then like that's like all I know. That's all I want to know. I really loved I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver, so I'm really excited to read another one of their works. As again, I've been meaning to read this for like at least 6 months. I can't remember exactly when it came out, but it's been like, it was like sometime last year. Rule number 4. So far no doubles. Will I jinx it? No. 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A 5-star prediction. So a book I think is going to be 5 stars. For 5-star prediction, I picked House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, the sequel to House of Earth and Blood. I think this is going to be a 5-star because I have given almost every Sarah J. Maas book besides like 3 of them. Yeah, besides like 3 of them, 5 stars. So I'm just guessing this is going to be 5 stars. The first book was like a 5-star. I loved it, so I feel like I will love the second book and give it 5 stars. Roll number 5 is 4. So I will just quickly turn the board. 1, 2, 3, 4. So LGBTQ plus rep. So a book that features an LGBTQ plus main character. For LGBTQ plus rep, I will be reading Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman. Sorry for looking down here. I have like everything on my phone here. And this I know nothing about except it takes place in Italy. And that's like it. I'm buddy reading this with somebody on Discord, like with one of my friends. They wanted to read it, so I figured like, hey, it's one that like, it's one that I will never read unless I'm buddy reading it. So might as well read it. This one is like kind of more of like a, I want to read it, but I don't want to read it. But like, yeah. And like, I know nothing about this. I haven't even watched the movie that this is is based on this. So like, does that show my interest in it? Like, ugh. And the 6th and final roll, if I don't get doubles, okay, we're doing 7 rolls. But 1, 2, oh, you can't see that, but we went 1, 2 to humans. So a book featuring humans, so this can be a fantasy that has humans, or a contemporary, or just anything that features humans, whether it be the main characters, side characters, anything like that. Then we got a double, so instead of 6, we're doing 7, which, okay, that's perfectly fine. And for roll number 6, I got humans, and this I'm reading Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This, literally all I know is that it's like a girl ends up falling for her boyfriend's dad. That's literally all I know. I'm buddy reading this with the same person I'm reading Call Me By Your Name with, and somebody else. 2 of my friends on like Discord. We have like a whole server that we literally just spend like all day chatting in, and we've all been wanting to read this, and it works perfectly for a romance readathon prompt that like we're all participating in that. So like we kind of were all like, hey, let's read this. We've been saying we want to read it. It works perfectly for this. So buddy reading that starting the 1st, I think. So now, since I rolled a double, it's now to 7. So roll number 7. Will this be the last one, or? Yes, it will. So roll number 7 gets a 7. That's funny. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have a community shelf card. So these are prompts that I have added that essentially they're things that aren't on the board, or I believe at least most of them aren't on the board. So I will just grab one of these. I literally have no idea what order these in. I literally just shoved them in my drawer after last month, so I couldn't tell you what they are. And the top one is a library book. So a book that I borrowed from my library, whether that be an ebook, a physical book, an audiobook I borrowed from my library. It just has to be borrowed from my library. For a library book, I'm going to be reading Legendary by Stephanie Garber. I do not have the copy because I'm waiting for it to come from my library, as it was needing to be shipped from a different like library in my library system. But that should be here hopefully within a few days. I'm also buddy reading this with some people on Discord. So like, yeah, this is the sequel to Caraval, which in Caraval we follow 2 sisters who end up going to this thing called Caraval. It's this like wild performance, and the sisters end up getting separated, and Scarlet ends up having to find her sister Tella, and that's kind of all I'm going to describe. I have no idea what's going to happen in Legendary, and I want to keep it that way. I have managed to avoid like all spoilers for the Caraval series, and I'm slowly reading through it, but yeah. I'll quickly mention TBR Knockout because that's the order that I have this. So TBR Knockout is essentially there's 2 prompts a month. You read a book to fill the prompt to like knock out your TBR. I'll leave Mal's original video down below, as well as any like creator that I mentioned or like mention their thing. I'll leave those all linked down below. But February's theme is short. So one is to a small book under 250 pages. I will be reading Your Dad Will Do by Katee Robert. Think of what I said for Birthday Girl, it applies to this. A girl gets with her ex's father, I think. I'm reading this as a like book club kind of thing with a few people on Instagram. We're reading smutty romances once a month throughout the year, and this is what was picked for February, and I'm very happy about it because I've loved everything that I've read by Katee Robert. I mean, I've read 3 of her books in January, so yeah. And then short story collection, I don't have any that I'm interested in. I have one, but it's like a 700-page anthology filled with short stories. I'm like, how about no, we'll skip this. So I'm also taking part in Fabelin, which is created by Margaret from the Word Nerd. That's her channel. I will leave that linked down below. And this is a like kind of like a not a role playing, not a choose your on your adventure, but kind of like similar to that, where essentially you have, let me just double check, where you have chosen, like I created this in January. I didn't include it in my January TBR because I discovered it afterwards, but you have a species, a weapon, a magical ability, and then you have an occupation, you have a animal companion, and an alignment. So I'll briefly go through those and all that. I probably won't explain this much for the months following, So my species is an elf, which the prompt is to read a fantasy, and I will be reading Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas, which is the second book in the Throne of Glass series. Essentially, we follow a assassin named Selena Sardathian as she goes through this like assassin competition to become like the king's assassin. And the series goes on from there, and Crown of Midnight is book 2. For my weapon, it is a sword, which is a new release, and I will be reading Claimed by Cupid by Dana Isley, and this is a like erotic novella where we follow like 2 characters, Nick and Holly, and they're like smutty Valentine's Day. It's the sequel to Dipped in Holly, which is where Nick and Holly first meet a couple days before Christmas, and that one is a smutty Christmas novella. For my magical ability, I have no ability, and that is to read a book over 500 pages. I will be reading House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas for this. Now onto my occupation. I am a healer, so a healer means that I need to do 6 quests. How quests are done is you put the there's like a whole sheet thing that each one corresponds to a prompt, and you like roll a number generator, and the number corresponds. So I will just say the number I got and what it corresponds to and what I got. So for quest number 1, I got Read a Tome, which is 500 plus pages, and for that I'll be reading House of Sky and Breath by Sarah J. Maas, as it's like 700 pages. For quest 2, choose a book that you know little about and have someone choose it for you. I had the person that I'm reading Call Me By Your Name with help me with this, and I had The Ghost We Keep by Mason Deaver, A Legacy of Storms and Starlight by J.Price, and No One Is Lonely Here by Sarah Everett, and A Legacy of Storms and Starlight was chosen. And this is a new adult, kind of like a new adult fantasy romance. That's all I know, really. That's all I want to know. I think it's maybe Fae. I have an arc of this, and it comes out on the 22nd, but I want to go in knowing completely blind. For quest number 3 is read a book about a bookish main character, and I'm going to be picking Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is a reread for me, for kind of also for that like flashback reads thing. And this essentially we have Elizabeth, who works in a like library where there's these grimoires that like have magic in it type thing, where it's like they at a certain level they can come alive and create monsters or something like that. This is a reread. It also has DIY sprayed edges. I feel like I should mention that. Definitely regret doing that. But I'm excited to do a reread of this, as I read it in 2020 and I really enjoyed it. Like, it was like a 4.5 maybe. And I'm very excited to reread it because it fits this prompt perfectly, and also the flashback reads readathon. For quest number 4 is read a book club / readathon book, and I'm picking No One Is Lonely Here by Sarah Everett, and this is the February group book for the Avengers Initiative Reading Challenge, which, funny enough, Margaret also is a host of that. I like just put 2 and 2 together, I think. And this I know literally nothing about, so I'm not going to explain it. I'm going in blind. I have this physically requested from my library, although I don't know when that will come in. For quest number 5 is you roll a d20, you times whatever number you got by 10, and you have to read for that many minutes without checking social media. I got a 14, meaning that I have to read for 140 minutes or 2 hours and 10 minutes without checking my phone. I'll probably like pick a weekend to just like sit down and read for like a couple hours. For quest number 6 is read a book that takes place in winter. I'm going to be reading Barbarian Alien by Ruby Dixon, which is the second book in the Ice Planet Barbarian series, where essentially it is like a series of books that all take place on this like wintry planet where a bunch of females like crash landed on it, and there are these like big blue aliens. Do I need to explain more? It's book 2. I read the first book in January and thoroughly loved it, and I'm just going to continue the series because it takes place in a wintry setting because we're on a planet that literally only has snow. And then my animal companion is not relevant, nor is my alignment. Now onto the Romance Readathon. This is a bingo board. I'll pop the bingo board up here so you can quickly see it, where essentially you read one book for each prompt, you get a bingo. So for First name initial in the title, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. This is a fantasy romance in my opinion, so I'm counting it for romance because hope starts with an H and so does the word house. For LGBTQ plus romance, I am using Call Me By Your Name by Andre Aciman because, well, it fits. For Hate to Love Story, I'm reading Dukes of Ruin by Angel Lawson and Samantha. This is it's the fourth book in the Royals of Foresight University series, but it's the start of a new trilogy. It's gonna be like Hate to Love, Enemies to Lovers maybe. It takes place at this university. That's all I know, really. That's all I want to know. It comes out on the 15th, and I will be reading it probably on release date. For Second Chance, I'm reading It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover, my first ever Colleen Hoover book. I know nothing about this. I asked some people in a Discord server, I was like, hey, I need some Second Chance romance recs. What you have? A couple people said If It Ends With Us, and I was like, okay, that works. I've also been meaning to read a Colleen Hoover book, but I just haven't yet, so this will be my first one. For a new to you author, I will be reading Resurrection by Siobhan Davis, and this I again know nothing about. It's like a dark bully romance that takes place at a high school. It's a reverse harem, so one girl, multiple guys. That's all I know. I've never read anything by Siobhan Davis before, and this has been on my radar for like a few months here. I've heard good things. I know that a friend on Discord loves this and like has said to me multiple times to read it, so I figured might as well. I probably will read this towards the end of the month because if I really like it, I will probably binge the rest of the series, but I'm not sure. For over 400 pages, which I seem to have skipped over, I'm reading Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. I've already explained this, and it's over 400 pages. I think Kindle Unlimited says it's 407 pages, so it counts. For a free choice, I'm picking Your Dad Will Do by Katie Robert. Chuck that on here, double up between things. That's perfectly fine with me. For fake dating, which I also seem to skip over, I'm going to be reading The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I know nothing about this except it's like we have these two scientists that agree to fake date, and it's maybe slightly enemies to lovers. It's also a kind of like a fanfic of Reylo, which is Kylo Ren and Rey from Star Wars, although I haven't I haven't watched anything Star Wars really. I don't know the couple, but I'm gonna read it. I've heard amazing things about it. I think almost everybody that I know that has read it has given it like 4 or 5 stars and loved it, so like of course I'm gonna pick it up. And then mature character over 30, I will be reading Claimed by Cupid by Dana Isley. Oh no, originally, in my original plan I had Birthday Girl on this, but then I moved that up and put Claimed by Cupid here. So, yeah. Mature character over 30, Nick is in like his 50s or something, so definitely a mature character over 30. Nick is old enough to be Holly's father. It's literally mentioned in the first book that he has kids that are about her age. So yeah, definitely a mature character. And that is all I have on my TBR minus one book that I didn't fit, which is City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare, the second book in the Mortal Instruments series. I'm reading this for By the Angel Alone, hosted by Becca from the Becca Fowl, where each month throughout the next like 2 years, I think, one Shadowhunter book is being read. I've read all of them, obviously besides what hasn't been released. So of course I'm going to jump on this and just do a reread of all the books. Now that, I think, is everything that I have on my TBR. I think it comes out to, let me check. If I counted correctly, 19 books. So, yeah, 19 books in 28 days, multiple of which that are over like 300, 400, 500 pages. Wish me luck. So if you want to see kind of how I do this month, I do weekly reading vlogs talking about books. I do a mid-month wrap-up and an end-of-the-month wrap-up. So, like, if you want to see if I am able to do this huge TBR that honestly I'm a little bit nervous of, definitely, like, subscribe, like, all of that. Leave in the comments if you have read any of these books yourself, have heard of them, or if some of these have been, like, a brand new book that you've never heard of before. As well, I love to just hear your thoughts. But I really hope you enjoyed this video, and bye!